Welcome to the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. Every week, you'll hear strategies for building your online service-based business your way. And now, here's your host, veteran freelancer, author, and TEDx speaker, Laura Briggs.
Welcome back, and it's time for another episode of the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. Now, we're well into 2022 by the time that you hear this podcast episode, but I think for most of us, trying to be healthier in our lives is not just something that's the subject of New Year's resolutions, right? It's really all about how can we make little improvements in our daily lives. Now, I've shared this before. This is my 10th year of freelancing. For some reason, that number feels super big to me. It's crazy to think that it has been 10 years of running a freelance business. And so I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately over what are the lessons that I've learned? Where are the places that I still need to grow? What are some of the challenges that I still struggle with as a business owner and as a freelancer? And I know this year, one of my big areas of focus is getting healthier overall, not just physically, but mentally. And although there are some really awesome things about running a freelance business, we also spend a lot of time in front of our computers. We spend a lot of time sitting. If you're a writer or a graphic designer or somebody who's doing a lot of manipulation on their keyboard and their computer on a regular basis, you're at risk of carpal tunnel. This is definitely front and center for me. I went into a period of working very, very long hours in January on a big project. I had a financial goal I wanted to hit and a project that I was working on that I wanted to make a good impression. And before I left for a week of vacation, my right wrist was in so much pain that I could barely use it after 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it wasn't carpal tunnel, but it was kind of this other wrist related injury from how I'd been holding my hands at the computer. And it was just a really good reminder of we can overdo it in so many different ways. You know, there have been so many studies that have just shown even just sitting, right? So sitting is one thing that can be really problematic for us. You know, higher blood sugar, higher blood pressure, higher risk of obesity, abnormal cholesterol levels, all of those contribute to metabolic syndrome. They just make you feel bad. You know, our body was not designed to sit all day. And so in this particular episode, I am going to walk through some of the things that I do to try to stay healthy, even while running a freelance business where you spend a lot of time in front of your computer. So these are sort of my top tips. So my first tip is use blue light glasses. Blue light glasses are a game changer. They are so readily available on the market now that you can find them for very cheap. If you do have a prescription, you can get them. Obviously, they're going to be a little more expensive to fill in that prescription. But I wear them almost all times when I am in front of a computer. Blue light has all kinds of negative, harmful impacts when we get too much of it. And those of us who are in front of computers, in addition to all the other screens we're in front of during the day, can really get overloaded. So I started wearing blue light glasses around mid 2017 and have stuck with it. I have several copies of the same pair of blue light glasses that I like. I take them with me if I'm traveling anywhere and I'm going to be doing work as well. I just find that it really reduces my eye strain. It reduces headaches, makes it a little bit easier to fall asleep. So it's not like it's something where you're going to put on your blue light glasses and instantly go, wow, this is such a difference. It's really more about, you know, try doing a full day with your blue light glasses and then see how you're feeling. If you're having some of those symptoms that I mentioned earlier, are they a little bit better? My second tip for staying healthy when you work on a computer all day is to get a standing or a convertible desk. So you can do, you know, I've made standing desks out of the counters in my kitchen. I've even piled boxes, you know, if the height wasn't right before. I finally bought a really great convertible standing desk on Amazon. I want to say it was around maybe $160. And it just goes on top of whatever table you use. And that way you can raise and lower it very quickly. So it wasn't a custom table. I didn't want that. I was concerned about, you know, the hydraulics and where would my cats like stick their paws in there. And I didn't want to have that, but I wanted something that I could easily raise and lower throughout the day. So I got a really good floor mat for standing. And then I got that convertible it's sort of like it has just a lever that you kind of raise it all the way up and then you can bring it back down. I found that to be really helpful when I was working really long days, and it just kind of added some variety. So I never was able to get to the point where I could stand all day. I don't know, it may be something with my posture. I know plenty of people who do that, but I struggled with it. But having that option, or even just standing for an hour, or standing for a meeting, or standing when I'm switching gears to do a different process in my business, I found to be really, really helpful. So that's something to consider. And I shared the version of this like standing desk or convertible desk with you because you don't need to invest in a $600 standing desk. You can try it by sort of simulating it first. And all of the advice that I received was pretty accurate, which was sort of work your way up, try to do 40 minutes and see if you can handle that, and then take a 15-minute break or a 20-minute break to sit. That variety really helped me significantly. And on that track, let's talk about breaks as well. They are so important to take. I know that I won't take it unless it's built into my schedule, unless it's on my calendar, or unless I feel like I've been sitting for a really long time. Try to take breaks at least once an hour. Get up once an hour, stretch, listen to a funny comedy clip, or something that inspires you, your favorite song. Get up and move around a little bit. Do some stretches. You can find those on YouTube. Just really kind of refresh yourself physically. That can make a big difference when you're in front of your computer all the time. When we sit in front of a computer for long periods, we tend to hunch over. We kind of adopt these really bad habits that we don't realize until we stop. And then we step away and realize, oh, my back hurts. My lower back is in pain. My neck feels like it has a crick in it. So my next two tips are kind of related together because they have to do with protecting your wrists specifically. There are all kinds of things out there that you can use to protect your wrists. I know for me, even the difference between working on a 13-inch MacBook versus a 15-inch, something about that 15-inch, the screen was nicer, but I often found that where it sat on my wrist, it caused me more pain. It caused me more kind of carpal tunnel-like symptoms. So watch for little things like that. Can you get an ergonomic keyboard? Can you get a gel pad that sits in front of your laptop? I've actually found that my wrist pain is the least when I connect it to my external monitor and I use the flat Apple keyboard. So the monitor is plugged into my MacBook, but it's a much bigger screen, which sits really nicely on that sitting convertible desk that I have. And it's much less pain on my wrist. So look for little things that you can try there. My two tips specifically for like carpal tunnel wrist pain. I have used peppermint essential oil for many, many years. I use it on my temples pretty much every day. It is sort of has anti-inflammatory properties. And so if your wrists do start hurting, and let's say you're on a deadline, you can't stop right now, kind of rubbing a little bit of that peppermint oil, and wash your hands afterwards because you don't want to get it in your eyes. It really burns. If you've ever done that, you will know that experience. And it's one that you want to avoid doing again. But some peppermint oil, I find that it, like on my temples and on my wrists, it just kind of adds this like refreshing scent that invigorates me, wakes me up again. But on my wrists in particular, it helps to reduce some of that pain. So my second tip there is to wear a night brace. There are really affordable night braces if you have one hand, or if both of your hands suffer from sort of consistent wrist pain. This is probably most relevant for writers, right? We spend a lot of time typing on our keyboards. And so I wear a wrist brace on my right wrist every single night when I go to bed. Like I said, they're 10 or 20 bucks on Amazon. Just search for like carpal tunnel wrist brace. They Velcro on. Most of the most effective ones have sort of a metal piece that basically helps hold your hand in place during the night. One of the ways that I notice carpal tunnel and other wrist pain showing up for me is waking up and my hands are tingling, or I can't feel my fingers. So it usually happens during the night. And just from sleeping, we can contort our wrists into weird positions. So that's one way that I kind of help alleviate that and make sure that my wrist stays straight. Whatever pressure I've put on it during the day, I'm giving it that break at night. And when I suffered that recent wrist injury, which I still haven't completely figured out, is it because I fell on the ice about 8 days before that when we had a really bad storm? Or is it that I was typing too much? Or maybe it was both. But that night brace was a real godsend when I was recovering from that. I even took it on vacation, wore it for 72 hours, like right around when we traveled, to really help reduce some of that pain as well. So those are specific to wrist injuries, or kind of like general sitting at your computer injuries. My next tip is to get outside a few times a day. I really struggled when we lived in Minnesota in dealing with the winter aspect. Winter was long, winter was painful. It felt like you couldn't even go outside. I think there's a difference, when it's like 30 degrees and you take the dog out and you do a quick 5 or 10-minute walk, that's bearable. When it's snowing and there's ice all over the ground and the city has not cleared the street in 3 months, you don't want to be outside at all. It's dark. It's like gray outside. It's just kind of depressing to be there. So it's been one of the things I've really been grateful for in moving away and into a state that has more like fall or spring-like months. Winter was like 7 months long in Minnesota. And it was absolutely painful because I felt like I couldn't go outside. I couldn't take walks. Getting outside a few times a day just totally can reset your mood. The other day, I had a frustrating situation with another freelancer I was working on a project with. And my first thing was like, all right, get outside. It's time to take the dog for a walk. We have a super long driveway. Anytime I'm just like, I need 5 minutes, I'll go, walk the driveway and back. I'll take the dog up there, or I'll go sit outside with the duck and the outdoor cat. Getting outside a few times a day, it's good for your health overall, but it's really nice to be able to step away from your computer. And it just feels like such a refreshing thing to do when you have been in front of your computer for so long. And speaking of moving, I like to move around in my house. So yes, I have an office. I also work from a variety of different places, especially when I feel like I'm getting antsy or like I've been sitting in the same place for a long time. So I'll work at our kitchen counter. We have an island that works really well for me to sit there in the kind of chairs that are aligned with the island. I'll sit on our couch. We have a couple couches that I can kind of move to. And it's really nice to be able to move around a little bit if I have to put in some long hours or I have a full day of meetings, but I can take a little bit of a break and in moving around there. So I strongly recommend moving around a little bit if you can. Obviously, much easier to do with a laptop or some other device. I also like to start the day with exercise. Most of us freelancers really struggle with fitting things in at the end of the day when we're busy, when our client work is piling up, when we always feel like there's, just one more thing that we could be doing. So I have found that if I don't put exercise at the beginning of the day, it's probably not going to happen. Now, of course, I still have that goal of getting outside a couple of times a day, but I always feel like if I get the exercise done and out of the way, it's a really nice way to start. And it doesn't give me anxiety about, I gotta check into my emails. I gotta sort of dive into everything associated with the workday. Now, my final tip is when it comes to exercise, whatever goals you're trying to meet, improving your endurance, just improving your overall strength, hitting a certain number of minutes, doing a certain type of exercise, I want to recommend Gretchen Rubin's The 4 Tendencies. It's a quiz that you can take that will tell you a little bit more about who you are. And I found it really helpful when it comes to thinking about how to make sure that you exercise. So of the 4 tendencies, I am an obliger, which means that if I have someone else who is counting on me to do a thing, I'm going to be there, right? Which kind of makes sense with this whole freelancing thing, right? If I have a deadline, I'm going to meet it. I don't want to look stupid or I don't want to let somebody down. But that means that goals that I set for myself often kind of fall off to the wayside. So for me, there's a couple of ways that I use that obliger tendency to really help make sure that I'm accomplishing my fitness and my health goals. So for me, I will work out with my husband and make that commitment that we're getting up at this certain time of day to go do X workout, and feeling like someone else is committed and someone else will be let down if I don't do it. That really helps. In the past, I've used a physical trainer where I'm not going to, skip out on that meeting I have with them. There's also some really great apps, and for obligers, things that gamify work really well. I have been using an app for about a year called StepBet, and it calculates what an active day and then what a power day should be for me. you bet $40. I mean, it's not always $40, but it's almost always that amount. And then you have to achieve that for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And if you mess up, you're out and your money is lost. And so there have been many times when I just needed to hit a certain number of steps per day. And I just didn't want to lose the $40, right? And so the nice thing is when you finish one of the step bets, all the money that kind of was contributed by people who dropped out and couldn't finish, that gets divided. So sometimes I win an extra $13 or an extra $20 beyond my $40 back, which I just reinvest into another challenge. And so that has worked really well for me. People who, want to work out with a friend, if you know you're much more likely to do it, that is a great way to fit that in. So being healthy while you're a freelancer, it's definitely possible, but it's certainly not easy. I find that we can't just have the intention of being healthy or set this goal of, I should be healthier, I should exercise more, I shouldn't spend as much time on my computer, because what that translates into is I'll address it when I have time, right? And those of us who are fully booked, you don't have time. Those people who are working to get fully booked, you're really busy marketing, and your goals right now are to get more clients and grow your business or balance the day job that you have with the freelance work you're doing. And so there's not ever really going to be a better time. And you don't have to take on all those goals at once, but even just taking on a couple of them and, can I take breaks once an hour? Can I order a pair of blue light glasses? Even that can make a big impact in how you feel day to day and can also give you some of that momentum to move forward with your business. So I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email at info@betterbizacademy.com to share your favorite healthy tip. I may feature it in my email newsletter. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode.